Now let's break the reading down, starting with chapter 5. So then stood the realm in great jeopardy long while. So basically, England is in trouble. For every lord that was mighty of men made him strong, and many weened to have been king. Weaned in our current time in life means to slowly get off of something. So if you're feeding someone something that they shouldn't really be eating for a long time, you want to wean them off of it until they no longer need it. Here, many weaned to have been king, many have wanted to have been king. This is in Middle English, so words are going to mean something completely different than how we use them now. Next, then Merlin went to the Archbishop of Canterbury and counseled him for to send for all the lords of the realm. And then basically all the lords are to come to London at Christmas time and pray to Jesus that he would send a great blessing or miracle down upon the Britons so that they can find a new king. When it says here, so in the greatest church of London, whether it were Paul's or not, the French book maketh no mention. At some point when this was written, the Normans are invading and they are keeping a history of British history for the British because they kind of look down upon the British at one point, and so they're kind of making their own language and helping the Brits out with that, and so they're keeping track of everything in their books. So according to the French histories, they do not know what church everyone met at. That's essentially what they're saying. So everyone, after Mass has ended, comes into the churchyard and sees the great stone, the anvil, and then the sword. And so in yellow I've highlighted what it says on the sword. And it says, "Whoso pulleth out the sword of the stone and anvil is rightwise king born of all England." And so the archbishop doesn't know what's inscribed on it. Merlin had inscribed it using magic so that everyone knows that this is the sword that is supposed to determine who becomes King of England. So the archbishop decides that there's going to be 10 knights who show up and they need to joust and perform in a tournament on New Year's Day. And if we keep scrolling down, so we have Sir Ector and Sir Kay and Arthur. Sir Ector is one of the noblemen of the area, and everyone likes Sir Ector. And his son is Sir Kay, and his foster son is Arthur. So when Arthur is born, Merlin takes him away, gives him to Sir Ector to take care of him, because times are so turbulent, he doesn't want Arthur killed. And so Sir Kay loses his sword at the hotel, sends Arthur to go back and get it, and that is when Arthur stumbles upon here the sword and the stone in the churchyard. So poor little Arthur panics because no one's at the hotel, they're all at the tournament. And so he walks over to the stone, and so he handled the sword by the handles and lightly and fiercely pulled it out of the stone. Then he got back on his horse, rode over to Sir Kay, and gave him the sword. Now Sir Kay sees the sword and says, "Oh my gosh, like how did you get this? I'm suddenly King of England because you brought me this magic sword." And he tells Sir Ector, well, this isn't very chivalrous of Sir Kay, because Sir Kay's supposed to be honest at all times, and he's not honest, so this violates the code of chivalry. So Sir Ector looks at the sword and goes, "You've been here the whole time. How did you pull it out of the stone?" And then he kind of looks at Arthur and goes, "Didn't you deliver the sword? Okay, explain this again. How did you get the sword out of the stone?" And so Arthur says, "Wherefore I," said Arthur, "and for what cause?" Saying basically, what is going on here and why do I have to explain myself? And so then at the very end, we are left with Sir Ector making Arthur pull the sword out of the stone again. Now we move on to chapter 6, and it's lovely because it's titled, "How King Arthur Pulled Out the Sword Diverse Times," meaning multiple times. And poor Arthur has to go around England, or well, really London mostly, and its outskirts, and keep pulling the sword out of the stone. And so Arthur decides to tell Ector how he pulls the stone out easily, or the sword out easily. He says, "I will well," said Arthur, and pulled it out easily. So this is not a problem. So Sir Ector finally tells Arthur that he's his foster son by saying, "Nay, nay, my lord Arthur," nay, nay meaning no, no, "it is not so. I was never your father, nor of your blood. But I wot well ye are of an higher blood than I weened ye were." Meaning, you're of a higher blood than I am. You're royal. I am not. We are two very different people. And then Sir Ector told him all, how he was betaken him for to nourish him, and by whose commandment, and by Merlin's deliverance. So he took in Arthur, nourished him, all at the request of Merlin. So, and just as a side note, so Merlin will be the counselor for King Arthur throughout his entire life. He just gives him some good pointers here and there. All right. So Arthur goes ahead and understands that Sir Ector is his foster parent. And he says, "And if ever it be God's will that I be king as ye say, ye being you, shall desire of me what I may do, and I shall not fail you. God forbid I should fail you, sir," said Sir Ector. So now Sir Ector's talking. "I will ask no more of you, but that ye will make my son, your foster brother Sir Kay, seneschal of all your lands." The seneschal is the governor of an area. We'll get there. But basically, Sir Ector is just asking for forgiveness for anything he's done wrong and wants to be treated fairly when Arthur is king. So they all go to the archbishop, explain what's going on, and so the archbishop provides protection for Arthur until he can prove that he's really pulled the sword out of the stone. So 10 knights in total are asked to watch the sword day and night, and they protect Arthur in the meantime. So then we get into the multiple instances of when Arthur is pulling the sword out of the stone. And right as Arthur did at Christmas, he did at Candlemas, and pulled out the sword easily, whereof the barons were sore aggrieved, and put it off in delay till the high feast of Easter. When they're saying sore aggrieved, it just means they're upset. They're aggravated that this kid, he's probably 12 or 13 at this time, is just pulling the sword out of the stone with no problem, and it looks like he's going to be king of England. And as Arthur sped before, so he did at Easter. Yet there were some of the great lords had indignation that Arthur should be king, and put it off in a delay till the feast of Pentecost. Pentecost comes after Easter. And so they just keep delaying this because these lords are jealous that Arthur is going to be king. All right, so then we're just going to skip to chapter 7. So after the feast of Pentecost, and everyone has seen Arthur pull the sword out of the stone now 4 different times, the archbishop basically calls an end to the madness and says, "We will have Arthur unto our king. We will put him no more in delay, for we all see that it is God's will that he shall be our king. And who that holdeth against it, we will slay him." So now the archbishop is not messing around. Now he's like, if someone else puts off Arthur becoming king, we're going to kill him. And so this is just a summary of what happens when Arthur is coronated. He becomes king, he's crowned, goes through the whole coronation, and then he makes Sir Kay, as promised, the governor of England. And so when Arthur, and this is in later books, when Arthur is away in battles, Kay kind of watches the kingdom, make sure no one else is invading, make sure everything is running smoothly, because Arthur obviously trusts Kay more than anybody. And so Arthur, just for more knowledge on this, is never going to be in Camelot. Very rarely is he going to be there. He's either off fighting mythical creatures, he's battling other people, he's making new enemies. He's never going to be there. So that is why he has the Knights of the Round Table, and that is why he's constantly surrounded by Sir Bodwin and Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias. They first protect Arthur, and then he puts them in charge of different and important roles so that they can watch the country for him. So I hope that kind of clarifies the story.